Welcome back to Sleepless Whispers. Tonight's episode brings you a collection of long-form horror stories drawn from the nightmares people never expected to survive. These are not legends passed down for entertainment. These are moments pulled from real lives, real jobs, real nights that were supposed to be ordinary. From rain-soaked parking lots and empty drive-thru lanes to quiet closing shifts where someone is always watching. These encounters blur the line between coincidence and something far more sinister. Every story you're about to hear has been reconstructed from first-hand testimony. Names, locations, and personal details have been altered to protect those involved, but the fear remains untouched. If you're new here, subscribe to Sleepless Whispers for daily true horror that follows you long after the screen goes dark. Turn on notifications, because the darkness is never late. I took the closing shift at the Dollar Basket on Route 11 because my financial aid didn't cover summer rent and my mom's hours at the clinic had just been cut again. I was 21, 3 credits short of graduating, living in a sagging duplex that smelled like dust and reheated noodles. The job wasn't great, but it was steady. Beeping scanners and buzzing fluorescent lights stitched the nights together. That faint chemical cleaner smell clung to my clothes like guilt. It was predictable, and right then, I needed predictable. That night it was just me, 2 coworkers, and our shift lead. Taryn moved down the aisles, with one headphone looped around an ear, humming to a song I couldn't place. Leo ran the other register and kept the mood, light small jokes thrown at the fluorescent hum, to keep the quiet from feeling too heavy. Rick, our supervisor, sat in the little office and pretended to do paperwork while he watched old game highlights on his phone, eyes flicking up only when the receipt printer jammed or the intercom, SQUEALED. Rain started right after sunset. The kind that makes the parking lot turn into a black mirror. The automatic door sighed and snapped with people ducking in for gum, batteries, cheap birthday cards, normal stuff. The store felt warm and almost apologetic, like it wanted to convince the night it was ordinary. Around 8:40, the first weird thing happened. He walked in alone, tall enough that his head brushed the hanging aisle signs. He ducked slightly under the doorframe like he was apologizing to the ceiling. His skin had that wrong, washed-out sheen under the strips. His hair was dark and messy, clumped in uneven spikes, like he'd hacked it himself. He stopped just inside the entrance and stood there longer than you should stand in a convenience store, staring at the linoleum like it was saying something. "You good?" Leo asked, loose as usual. The man tilted his head. When he spoke, his words came slow, heavy, almost. Time, the phrase landed in the air like a pebble in a quiet pond. It wasn't threatening in a grab-a-beethroat way. It was flat and measured, like someone reading off a line they'd rehearsed. Leo shrugged. "We're open. Take your time, man." Instead of shopping, he drifted under the aisle's seasonal snacks, hobby kits that never sell. He didn't touch a thing. On the security monitors, he moved like an old program buffering. Stop, start, repeat. Taryn joked he moved like a loading screen. Rick didn't bother to look up. "As long as he ain't stealing," he muttered. At 9:05 he came to my register. Up close, he smelled faintly metallic and damp. The skin around his eyes was thin, the kind that shows tired veins. He leaned toward the card reader and looked at my hands the way someone reads a clock. "Find something?" I asked because you asked that when someone's in your lane. "Not yet. Almost time," he said, and the breath that carried the words smelled like a basement. I tried to laugh with Leo. The noise felt like a fragile shield. The man tilted his head, as if trying to decode laughter, then drifted away. The rain grew harder. By 9:30, wind shoved sheets of water against the windows and Rick locked one of the doors early, telling us to expect an early close at 10. The store emptied into the storm cigarettes, quick coffee, people who wanted to be inside something warm for a minute, but the tall man remained. He passed my lane again and again, each time whispering the same phrase, "Almost time." The words wrapped around my chest until I could breathe only shallow. "Rick," I said into the headset. "That tall guy, he's still here. Keeps saying weird stuff." Rick sighed. "I'll handle it after close," he said, and the manager tone in his voice meant a promise that had little intent behind it. At 9:55, the lights flickered. Thunder cracked so loud it rattled the ceiling panels. The last customers hurried away. Rick locked both doors at 10 and laid out the sweep routine. 5-minute clean. Stock count. We moved in the practiced, tired rhythm of people who do this shift every night. Taryn went toward the back to sweep. Leo grabbed the mop. I stayed at the counter watching the camera grid. The feed showed empty aisles like a stage wiped clean. "He's not showing anywhere," I said, the words thin. Rick's face tightened. He grabbed the flashlight under the counter. "Taryn just went back. He has to be around the stockroom." Her voice crackled through the headset. "Shaky. There's someone back here," she whispered. We moved as a unit. The stockroom corridor is narrower than it looks, a throat of concrete between metal shelving. Rain pounded the roof in a rhythm that tried to swallow every other sound. Taryn stood pale at the doorway, hand over her mouth. "He's in there, just standing," she said. Rick swung the heavy door open like he expected to catch someone rifling boxers. The tall man stood with his back to the cinder block wall, shoulders rising and falling in a slow, deliberate breath. No basket, no sign of theft, just a person placed wrong within the space. Stores closed. Rick said, voice clipped, you need to leave now. The man turned partway, one pale eye angling toward us. Now, it's time. The lights went out, not a flicker total black like someone shut the room off. Emergency lights stuttered on a second later in a weak red pulse that made everything look clinical and thin. A plastic bin clattered to the tile and skittered and stopped. The sudden silence was a weight. The stockroom was empty, but we froze, then we heard it, tap, tap. 3 slow knocks from the front of the store. Deliberate, measured like a hand. Checking off beats on a ledger. We ran through the red-lit aisles. The man stood outside the locked glass doors, rain streaming off him. His face pressed to the pane, leaving faint fog where he breathed. His eyes found mine and held. Almost time, he said, softer now. And the sound felt close as a promise. Thunder shook the doors. The lights flickered. For one breathless second, his reflection split, doubling him in the glass, so 2 pale shapes stood there. Then the power slammed back, and the cameras whirred as if waking from drown. The parking lot was empty. What didn't open the doors? Rick called the police with his voice thin and practiced. When the cruiser rolled through the lot, officers peered at the monitors and shrugged. No prints, one said. Probably a drunk. Taryn quit the next week. Leo transferred. I kept the job because rent kept breathing down whatever spare room I had left in my schedule. 2 weeks later, another storm. Different crew. Same fluorescent throb. Same shine on the pavement. Same rhythm. At 9:58, the scanner chirped for no reason. The register made that polite beep that usually means someone finished a purchase. Then tap, tap. 3 slow knocks came from the inside of the glass storage door, right behind the counter where I stood. My spine went cold. Every hair rose. The sound sat in the air like a physical thing, and through the rain and the machines, close enough to be a whisper against skin, a voice said, now, it's time. The end. I never planned on working the graveyard shift at Burger Basket right off Highway 59. That was the kind of job you took when your options were thinner than the slice of cheese on a cheap burger. But here I was, 23 years old, 6 months out of college, staring at $40,000 in student loan debt and realizing that piece of paper was just an expensive napkin. I'd moved back to my hometown, living in the same cramped basement room I grew up in, and spending my nights slinging chili cheese fries to truckers and local drunks. The real struggle wasn't the hours. It was the quiet humiliation of knowing I was failing to launch, that crushing feeling of expectation versus reality. That's the real psychological horror, and it was a slow burn. The manager, a woman named Brenda, was usually asleep in the back office by midnight, leaving me and the closing cook, a high school kid named Tyler, to manage the store. Tyler spent most of his time scrolling through TikTok videos while I scrubbed down the stainless steel and listened to the cheap pop music loop endlessly on the overhead speaker. The night it happened, the weather was something else. A classic mid-Atlantic tempest. Heavy, relentless rain. Wind that sounded like a low-flying jet engine. And flashes of lightning that turned the parking lot white for a terrifying second before plunging it back into inky blackness. It was a slow night, even for us. The lot was empty. The only vehicles, the 2 beat-up sedans belonging to me and Tyler. I was behind the main counter, wiping down the sticky drink station, trying to ignore the persistent rattle of the big front windows. The clock on the register read 12:47 a.m. when the familiar, irritating beep-beep of the drive-thru sensor went off in my headset. I sighed, adjusted the phone piece over my ear, and flipped the mic on. I had to shout a little over the drumming rain outside. Welcome to Burger Basket. Thank you for waiting in this gnarly weather. What can I get started for you? I used a standard, plastic-sounding cheerfulness, the one I usually reserved for day shifts. Static, loud, hissing static, like sandpaper rubbing against the speaker. Then a voice came through. It was deep, muffled, and strangely distant, like the speaker itself was submerged in water. It wasn't clear, but the words were definitely English. Medium, Dr. Pepper, and single patty, cheeseburger. Got it. A medium Dr. Pepper and a single cheeseburger. I repeated, punching it into the register. The total popped up. That's $5.75. Pull up to the first window when you're ready. Please. More static. No affirmation. I waited 30 seconds, scanning the drive-thru camera monitor. The image was grainy, distorted by the rain, but I should have been able to see headlights or the outline of a vehicle by the speaker box. There was nothing, just the fuzzy dark rectangle of the fence line, soaked in rain. Tyler. I called out. Tyler pulled an earbud out and looked at me, annoyed. The camera is acting up, man. Someone just placed an order, but I don't see a car. Tyler walked over, squinting at the black and white screen. It's the storm, Jess. The camera cable probably got waterlogged. Just wait, they'll pull up. I shrugged, bagging the order. I hated the uncertainty, standing there, holding a warm bag of food for a customer that seemed to have materialized out of the ether. The headset beeped again, a sharp, insistent sound that made me flinch. welcome to Burger Basket. Can I help you? I need my order. The voice came through again. The same slow, muffled cadence, heavier on the static this time. It sounded almost desperate. I checked the clock. It was 1:05 a.m., sir. I have your order ready, but I don't see your car at the window. Are you still at the speaker? The response was immediate, an unnervingly clear whisper cutting through the static. I'm here. You forgot. My blood went cold. That wasn't right. I looked at the monitor again. Still empty? The rain was so loud now I couldn't hear the speaker box at all. Brenda, wake up, I shouted, rushing to the back office door and knocking hard. Brenda emerged, rubbing her eyes, irritated. What in God's name? Jess, we don't need the cops here. What's the ruckus? I yanked the headset off and held it out. The drive-thru. Someone is ordering, but they're not there. I can't see them on the monitor, but they just spoke to me. Clear as day. Brenda said, you forgot. Brenda looked at me like I was soft in the head. It's a storm. Jess, electrical interference. These cheap mics pick up anything truck or CB, maybe a short on the power lines. Look, I'm not losing my job because you got spooked by a little static. Take an umbrella and go check the speaker box. Make sure there ain't some idiot pulling a prank. I didn't want to go out there. My whole body was screaming no, but Brenda's tired, judging stare was worse than the storm. I grabbed a bright yellow burger basket, branded umbrella, and stepped out into the chaotic deluge. The parking lot was a mess of puddles and windswept leaves. I held the umbrella tight, bracing against the wind. I followed the faint yellow line of the drive-thru lane toward the speaker box. I got halfway there when I stopped dead. I saw them. Tire tracks. Fresh, deep tread marks cutting straight through the standing water and mud. They didn't curve left toward the order window where the car should have been waiting. They went straight, right past the industrial dumpsters, smashing through the low, chain-link fence, and leading directly into the thick copse of woods behind the plaza. The dread was immediate and sharp. A cold spike in my chest. I dropped the umbrella. It was useless anyway. The wind had already ripped it inside out. My debt, my disappointment, all the quiet self-pity I carried around, it vanished, replaced by pure, blinding fear. I was looking at proof of a catastrophic failure, something that had nothing to do with faulty equipment or pranks. I pulled out my cell phone, hands shaking too hard to dial 911 immediately. I had to know. I had to follow the tracks. The woods were thick, a maze of rain-slicked oak and pine, but the tire tracks were easy to follow. They'd broken small saplings and churned the dirt into a slick slurry. About 20 yards into the pitch-black woods, I saw it. Faint, broken light flickering through the rain-soaked branches. I crept closer. The smell hit me first. Not rain, not mud, but something acrid and metallic. Burnt oil and blood. There was a car, a silver sedan, probably expensive once, now utterly ruined. It had hit an old, massive oak tree head-on. The impact had been violent. The hood was crumpled into an accordion, and the windshield was a shattered mosaic. Steam rose in wisps from the crushed engine block. Mingling with the mist from the rain. I walked to the driver's side window. It was rolled halfway down. I gasped, clapping a hand over my mouth to stop the scream. The driver was a man, mid-50s, wearing a dark business suit. He was slumped toward the passenger seat. His face was barely visible in the dim light cast by the internal dash display, but what I could see was horrifying. His head had clearly impacted something solid. Half his scalp was gone, bone exposed and jagged. His jaw was disconnected, hanging loose by strands of skin and tissue. There was a terrifying amount of blood, soaking the expensive fabric of his suit. He was utterly, irrevocably dead, and he had been for a while. The air in the car was cold. Double quotes. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus Christ, I whispered, fumbling with my phone again. I needed to call. Then, the car seemed to take a final, shuddering breath. The dash light switch had been barely visible suddenly flared up to full brightness. The radio, which had been silent, crackled to life with a blast of static. And the dead man moved. Slowly. His head lifted. The ruined skull tilted toward me. His eyes wide open, gray and glassy, completely lifeless, rolled and locked onto mine through the shattered window. Blood was still dripping slowly from his ruined chin onto the airbag, and a voice, the same low, muffled voice from the headset, hissed right at my ear. So close, I felt the phantom breath of it. You forgot my order. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe. I simply turned and ran. I didn't run through the trees. I ran over the trees, propelled by a raw, ancient terror. I burst out of the woods, stumbling through the mud, ignoring the sirens going off in my head. I didn't stop until I hit the glass door of the restaurant. Slamming it shut behind me, I leaned against the cold metal, shaking so hard I thought I was having a seizure. Brenda and Tyler were staring at me. I must have looked like I'd clawed my way out of a grave, covered in mud and soaking wet. Call 911. Woods bed crash. He's dead. I hyperventilated, pointing wildly toward the dark tree line. Brenda finally saw the look in my eyes and knew I wasn't playing. She grabbed the phone. The police, an ambulance, and a tow truck showed up within 20 minutes. I was huddled under a blanket, drinking watery coffee and giving a shaky statement to the deputy, a young guy I recognized from high school. We walked back into the woods. Brenda insisted on coming, shining her flashlight ahead. The scene was exactly the same. The car, the tree, the wreckage, the smell of oil and burnt metal. But the headlights were dim again, almost out, and the driver was slumped over, eyes closed, absolutely still. Dead. The paramedic checked the pulse, then shook his head. He's gone. Probably been gone a few hours. Rigged up pretty good. He talked to me. I whispered to the deputy. The deputy gave me a sympathetic, professional look. Listen, Jess, you were just in shock. That's a rough scene. The rain, the storm, electrical short can make the lights flicker. It's not unusual for trauma victims to hallucinate. But the order, I insisted. Dr. Pepper and a single cheeseburger. I have the order right here. I pointed to the bag I'd left on the counter. They found the man's wallet. His name was Harold Wheaton, a traveling accountant from Chicago. He was driving cross-country to see his mother. The crash probably happened around 9 p.m. Hours before I ever got the headset signal. I quit that job the next morning. I didn't even wait for my final check. I couldn't look at a drive-thru speaker without wanting to vomit. I paid off my loans with credit cards and took a job at a quiet archive office, somewhere with no windows and absolutely no customer service. But when it rains, and the power flickers, and the silence settles over the town, I hear it, the faint, crackling voice of a dead man, asking for the last thing he ever wanted on this earth, and I remember the shame of still having this life, still being here, while he was left in the mud. The end. I remember staring at the clock, watching the slow, grinding seconds tick by, and wondering if this fluorescent lit box was all my life was ever going to be. I was 24. And the irony of having a bachelor's degree in sociology while working the closing shift at the Chicken Shack off Interstate 81 in rural Pennsylvania was not lost on me. I had moved back to my childhood town, living with my grandmother to save money, which was code for avoid rent collectors. The only thing that kept me sane was the company of Alara, the cashier. She was maybe 19, tough as nails, and constantly telling me I was too good for this place. Alara and I had a rhythm. By 11:15 p.m., the lobby was usually empty. She'd take out the trash, I'd detail the drink station, and we'd gossip about the few regulars who drifted in. That November night, the rain was coming down hard enough to make the highway sound like a rushing river. It was a Friday, and usually, that meant the local high school crowd. But the weather had shut everything down. "You okay, You look like you're starring in a mopey country song," Elara joked, wiping down the sticky tabletop nearest the window. "Just thinking about that student loan payment coming up. It makes me want to cry and then set something on fire," I replied, adjusting the loose ends of my dark brown hair, which I always wore in a tight, high ponytail to keep it out of the fryer oil. But we had maybe 15 minutes left until we could officially lock the doors. The quiet of the restaurant was only broken by the hissing of the fryers and the drone of the rain. It was an oppressive silence, the kind that makes you feel utterly exposed. Then the front door opened. No dramatic slam, no jingle, just a slow, deliberate swing, pushing against the wind. A man walked in. He was mid-30s, maybe 6 feet tall, dressed in a faded dark green hoodie and jeans that looked damp around the ankles. Water beaded on his shoulders and dripped silently onto the industrial tile floor. He didn't head for the counter or the empty tables. He stopped immediately inside the doorway, just out of the worst of the rain, and stood perfectly still. I watched him. Alara watched him. He was staring at me, not at the sign, not at the menu board, but straight into my eyes with an unnerving, placid focus. "Can I help you, sir? We're closing soon," I asked, stepping out from behind the counter. I tried to keep my voice even, professional. He didn't move. He didn't even blink. Then, he slowly lifted his right hand. And that's when I saw the doll. It was clearly handmade, maybe 1.5 feet tall, made of rough, off-white canvas. It had 2 black button eyes that stared ahead blankly, and thick, dark brown yarn hair, tied back in a messy ponytail exactly like mine. It was wearing a tiny, crude miniature version of our Chicken Shack uniform, complete with a tiny, ridiculous paper hat. My blood turned to ice. It wasn't just a doll. It was me. "I don't think we're running any promotions on merchandise, sir," I said, trying to force a laugh, but it came out as a weak, strangled sound. His lips stretched into a wide, unsettling smile. It didn't reach his pale, vacant eyes. "I know you're not, Jessamine," he said, his voice a low, soft murmur, completely calm and conversational, as if we were discussing the weather. "I made her myself. Took me a while to get the stitches right. The freckles were the hardest part." He tilted the doll forward. 3 tiny, meticulous brown knots of thread were stitched right across the bridge of the fabric nose. I had 3 freckles there. Nobody ever noticed them unless they were looking closely. Alara stepped up, crossing her arms. "Listen, dude, you gotta order, or get out. We're clocking out." He dismissed her with a slight shake of his head, his gaze never leaving mine. "Alara, you always stand over there by the mop bucket when the rain is this loud. Your little routines are so easy to memorize. But this is between me and Jessamine. I felt the floor tilt. He knew Ilara's name, her habit. He wasn't guessing. He had watched us. How do you know my name? I whispered, my legs suddenly too weak to hold me up. He chuckled, a dry, papery sound. I told you, I watch you. Every night, I know you always start wiping down the tables on the west side, by the condiment bar, and you finish on the east side by the door. Always use exactly 3 paper towels for each table. So precise, he took one slow step forward. The distance suddenly felt immense and terrifyingly small. I brought you a gift. Because I'm tired of watching from the outside. 3 months is a long time to wait for a friend. Wouldn't you agree? He reached inside the pocket of his hoodie and pulled out something else. It was a knife. A hunting knife with a long, dull blade. Ilara screamed, a high, panicked sound that seemed to shatter the stillness. Get back. I'm calling 911 right now. The man didn't react to her. He looked at the doll in his hand, then back at me. His voice was soft, laced with a tremor of twisted devotion. You see, Jessamine, you're just too good for this dirty world. You're like a bird stuck in a cage, and I'm here to set you free. I've seen your window, 3rd floor, that cheap little apartment over the dry cleaners on Main Street. That window latch is broken. You really should fix that. I could have come in any night. The casual horror of that statement, the broken latch, the dry cleaners, shook me to my core. He wasn't a phantom. He was real. He had been outside my life, cataloging my existence. You belong to me, he stated, his voice suddenly sharp, commanding. And if I can't have you, nobody can. He raised the knife. He didn't strike at me. He drove the blade straight into the abdomen of the doll. The sound was sickening. Not the tearing of cotton, but a wet, squelching sound. The canvas split, and instead of white stuffing, a grotesque, foul-smelling mixture of raw, shredded meat and dark, viscous liquid like old blood gushed out onto the tile. The smell of putrefaction, of iron and rot, hit the warm, oily air of the chicken shack like a punch. He laughed, a chilling, triumphant sound. See, this is what happens when you try to leave me. He stabbed the doll again and again, each thrust splattering the dark, decaying mess across the front counter and the bright yellow walls. The wet, tearing sounds echoed like a hammer hitting bone. Elara was frozen, her hand clutching her phone, tears streaming down her face. Jessamine, he whispered, leaning close, his voice thick with maniacal glee. I need you to look. He twisted the doll's head violently, tearing the yarn and canvas. The head snapped off, releasing a final, horrible gush of the bloody tissue onto his hand. He lifted the severed doll head to his face, pressing it to his cheek. My only one, he murmured to the head. Just as he was about to advance toward me, the kitchen door burst open. It was Albert, the night security guard, a retired state trooper who usually just drank coffee in the back room. He had finally heard Ilara scream, "Please, drop the weapon. Now," Albert roared. Pulling a can of industrial-strength oven cleaner from his belt and aiming it like a gun, the shock broke the man's concentration. He looked from the doll head in his hand to Albert, then back to me. His face crumbled, the manic joy replaced by a deep, profound sadness. They're going to separate us, he whimpered, backing toward the front door. Sirens, loud and close, suddenly screamed outside. Ilara had gotten through. The man didn't run. He didn't fight Albert. He simply backed out the door, the rain instantly washing the fake blood from his jacket. As 2 uniformed officers tackled him in the vestibule, he kept his eyes locked on mine, his lips moving silently over the doll's head. Mine. The police identified him as Seth Calloway. He had a history of paranoid schizophrenia, had just been released from a facility a few months prior, and had fixated on my shift schedule. They found detailed journals and drawings in his derelict apartment, all depicting me and the chicken shack. The doll was marked Hannah, a name he used for the idealized versions of his targets. I left town within 48 hours. I didn't even say goodbye to my grandmother. I changed my name, dyed my hair, and moved to the West Coast, taking a job in data entry where my interaction with the public was 0. But the stillness never leaves me. The knowledge that someone studied me so closely, memorized my pathetic routine. Sometimes, when I'm wiping down my own kitchen counter late at night, I instinctively reach for the 3rd paper towel. And sometimes, when the silence is too loud, I hear that soft, satisfied whisper in my memory. The freckles were the hardest part. The end.